Retro Road Test, Ford Granada 2.0 vs Volvo 242.0, Battle of the Big Beasts, 1984. There are few things more magnificently British than buying a large, sensible saloon to prove you've made it in life. Forget the yacht, ignore the golf club membership. The real badge of middle management respectability in 1984 is a 2-liter executive barge parked outside your semi. And two names dominate that particular curbside battlefield, Ford Granada and Volvo 240. Both have been designed for men, and the occasional forward-thinking woman, who carry briefcases, wear tweed jackets, and find themselves inexplicably excited by the word carburetor. Each represents a different national ideal, the Granada, Britain's homegrown swagger wagon, and the Volvo, Sweden's rolling safety bunker. But which deserves your company car allowance, your weekend polish, and your neighbor's envious glances? Time to find out. First impressions, when size meant status. In 1984, downsizing was something you did to your trousers after Christmas, not your motor. The Granada and Volvo 240 are both unapologetically big cars. They take up space, drink fuel, and block sunlight for smaller hatchbacks parked nearby. But that's rather the point. These aren't just cars, they're statements. The Ford Granada 2.0L looks sleek in that squarish, early 80s way, the kind of car a regional newsreader might drive. Its design, though modernized for the Mk2 facelift in 1981, still carries a faint whiff of 70s optimism. With its chrome grille, flat flanks, and long, confident bonnet, it says, "I'm going to Milton Keynes and I mean business." The Volvo 240 GL, meanwhile, looks like it's been hewn from a shipping container. Its lines are so straight you could use them to calibrate a spirit level. The bonnet is a broad, flat slab, the roofline unyielding, and the bumpers seem to have been borrowed from a Scandinavian ferry. But there's something reassuring about its brutal honesty. The Volvo doesn't try to charm, it simply exists, like an oak wardrobe with wipers. You might think the Ford looks sleeker, and it does, but the Volvo's design has a peculiar appeal. It's the sort of car that says, "I don't care what you think, but I will outlast your children." Engines, 2 liters of diligence. Under their ample bonnets, both cars hide engines that are, in theory, perfectly adequate for their purpose. The Granada 2.0 uses Ford's famous Pinto 4-cylinder engine, a stalwart of Cortinas, Sierras, and half the British police fleet. In the Granada, it develops around 101 bhp and 115 pound-foot of torque, which on paper looks quite healthy for the time. The Volvo 242.0, in GL trim, uses the Swedish B200E engine, another iron block legend, fuel-injected, with roughly 110 bhp and a shade more torque. It's a little more refined than the Ford's carbureted unit, but also has a distinctly agricultural note at idle. Start them up and the personalities diverge immediately. The Ford fires with a brisk cough and settles into a slightly lumpy tick-over, the exhaust burbling like a dozing Labrador. The Volvo starts with the confident whir of Nordic machinery and a faint mechanical clatter, as though there's a small lathe at work somewhere in the dashboard. In motion, both engines are perfectly serviceable rather than thrilling. The Granada's Pinto pulls cleanly and, thanks to long gearing, cruises happily on the motorway. But ask for a quick overtake and you'll be met with the sound of patient mechanical effort rather than drama. The Volvo, despite its injection advantage, isn't much faster. 0-60 miles per hour comes in around 12.5 seconds, compared with the Ford's 13-odd. Neither car will frighten a Golf GTI, but that's hardly the point. The real difference is in character. The Ford feels livelier, its throttle more eager, the gearbox, a 4-speed manual in our test, light and accurate enough. The Volvo, meanwhile, feels like it would prefer you didn't rush. Its 5-speed box is slower and more deliberate, but rewards unhurried progress. The Ford is your excitable pub mate, the Volvo is your calm Swedish uncle reminding you that overtaking lorries is optional. On the road, comfort vs calm. The Granada has always been known for its ride comfort, and the 2.0L doesn't disappoint. Soft springs and generous seats make long journeys pleasantly wafty. The steering is light, almost too light at parking speeds, and the suspension copes well with Britain's crumbling A roads. Body roll is present but predictable, and once you're accustomed to its easy gait, the Granada glides along with surprising poise. Push a bit harder, though, and the Granada begins to reveal its size. The nose heaves under braking, the rear squats under acceleration, and there's a faint sense that you're piloting something built more for the golf course than the Nürburgring. But as a motorway cruiser, it's superb, stable, smooth, and perfectly content at 70 miles per hour with the radio murmuring away. The Volvo, meanwhile, is an entirely different experience. The steering is weightier, the suspension firmer, and the entire car feels as if it's been designed to withstand artillery fire. Where the Ford glides, the Volvo plows on. The ride is firm but incredibly composed, you feel the road surface, but in a reassuring, engineered sort of way. The damping is excellent, soaking up undulations without wallowing. In corners, the Volvo actually feels a touch more secure than the Ford. There's less roll, more grip, and a sense of solidity that's very Scandinavian. It doesn't invite you to drive fast, but if you do, it handles itself with quiet competence. Think of it as an overbuilt Labrador, calm, sturdy, but capable of a good run when asked. On twisty B roads, the Granada is the more engaging of the two, though engaging here means vaguely responsive rather than alarmingly detached. The steering is light but communicative enough, and you can place it easily. The Volvo, by contrast, feels heavier and slower to turn, but its balance is impressive once you trust it. In the wet, a common condition in Britain, the Volvo's superior traction and predictable understeer inspire confidence. The verdict. The Ford wins for comfort and ease, the Volvo wins for stability and control. On a long trip to Bournemouth, you'd take the Granada. On a snowy dash to Aberdeen, you'd want the Volvo. Interiors, a tale of two philosophies. Step into the Granada, and you're greeted by a dashboard that seems designed by someone with a fondness for square buttons and imitation wood. Everything is within easy reach, the visibility is superb, and there's enough space to host a small dinner party. The velour seats are so plush you half expect them to come with armrests and sherry. Instrumentation is clear and simple, speedo, fuel, temperature, and a clock that may or may not tell the truth. The heating system is excellent, a Ford hallmark, and the car even has proper stowage for cassettes, maps, and perhaps a pipe. The driving position is relaxed, and though the steering wheel is as large as a dustbin lid, it feels right for the era. The Volvo 240S interior, by contrast, is an exercise in brutalist restraint. It's beautifully made but deliberately austere, black plastics, upright seats, and an air of serious purpose. The dashboard looks as if it was carved from a single block of black granite. Yet there's something undeniably solid about it all. Everything feels engineered rather than styled. Volvo's ergonomics were ahead of their time, all controls fall neatly to hand, and the visibility is panoramic. The seats, often lauded as the best in the business, are firm but incredibly supportive. You could drive to the Arctic Circle and still emerge without backache. The heater is powerful enough to melt glaciers, and there's a sense of safety and calm that the Ford can't quite match. In terms of space, the two are neck and neck. Both will seat 5 adults, though the Volvo's boot is marginally bigger and better shaped for awkward loads. The Granada's cabin feels slightly airier, while the Volvo's has a cozier, more enclosed feel, like a Scandinavian living room with less pine. If you like warmth, color, and softness, you'll prefer the Ford. If you like order, logic, and materials that appear indestructible, the Volvo's your friend. Performance and economy, horses and gallons. Neither of these cars was built for speed, but both are surprisingly capable given their bulk. As noted, the Volvo edges ahead in outright power, but the Granada's gearing and lighter feel make them evenly matched in real-world driving. Performance figures, period road test averages. Ford Granada 2.0 L, 0-60 miles per hour in 13.3 seconds, top speed 104 miles per hour. Volvo 240 GL 2.0, 0-60 miles per hour in 12.5 seconds, top speed 107 miles per hour. In the mid-80s, that was perfectly respectable for a large saloon. You could overtake caravans with moderate confidence and join the outside lane of the M1 without embarrassment. Economy, however, is another story. The Granada's carburetor system means you'll be lucky to see more than 26 miles per gallon on average, dipping to the low 20s around town. The Volvo's injection helps it stretch to 28-30 miles per gallon if driven gently. Neither will make Greenpeace happy, but remember, these were the days when petrol was 40p a litre and climate change was just something you worried about on your Spanish holiday. Servicing costs, though, tell a different story. The Ford's Pinto engine is famously easy to maintain. Any local garage can strip and rebuild it with a socket set and a cup of tea. The Volvo's B200e is tougher but more complex, parts are pricier, and Swedish engineering doesn't come cheap. Over 5 years of ownership, the Ford will almost certainly be the cheaper companion, though the Volvo will likely be the more faithful one. Safety and durability, brick vs bluster. This is where the Volvo begins to flex its Nordic muscles. The 240 wasn't just built for safety, it was obsessed with it. Volvo engineers crash tested these things so often it's a wonder any made it to the showroom. With its energy-absorbing crumple zones, reinforced passenger cell, and seat belt pretensiousness, the 240 set the standard for automotive safety in the 80s. Drive one and you get the sense that even if you encountered a small meteorite, the car would shrug and carry on. Doors shut with a vault-like thunk. The pillars are thick enough to survive a charging elk, and even the headrests look capable of deflecting small arms fire. The Granada, to its credit, wasn't unsafe by contemporary standards. It had seat belts, a strong chassis, and predictable handling. But compared with the Volvo's obsessive engineering, it feels more casual about the whole business of staying alive. The Ford will protect you, the Volvo will save you. Durability follows a similar pattern. The Granada is tough enough, but rust has a nasty habit of taking up residence in the sills and wheel arches if not lovingly maintained. The Volvo, meanwhile, appears to have been dipped in anti-corrosion potion. Many are still trundling around today, decades later, their bodywork untroubled by time. The Ford will serve you well through the lease period, the Volvo might still be going strong when your grandchildren pass their tests. Ownership, image and identity. Cars say things about their owners, especially in 1984. Drive a Granada, and you're seen as a solid British success story, perhaps a sales manager, a district superintendent, or someone who's made it just enough to afford a proper big car. There's a faint whiff of company motor about it, but that was a compliment at the time. The Granada is aspirational without being pretentious, a sort of four-wheeled pinstripe suit. The Volvo 240, on the other hand, carries an entirely different image. In Britain, it's the choice of the thoughtful professional, architects, teachers, social workers, the sort of people who buy fair trade coffee before it's fashionable. Driving a Volvo in the 80s was a quiet statement that you cared more about sense than style. The Ford driver might boast about performance per pound while the Volvo driver would simply nod, smile, and drive home to their Scandinavian-inspired furniture and smoked glass coffee table. There's also a difference in national character. The Granada is charmingly brash, it wants you to notice it, even if only slightly. The Volvo couldn't care less. It knows it's better built and will still be running when the Ford's on its third owner and second set of sills. Practicalities, everyday use. For family duties, both cars excel. They're roomy, comfortable, and capable of lugging half a B&Q flat pack collection. The Volvo's rear seats fold almost flat, turning it into a sort of proto-estate even in saloon form. The Granada's boot is deep and wide, but not quite as square as the Volvo's cavernous load area. Parking either is a bit of an event, they are both large, and neither has the turning circle of a Mini. The Ford's power steering makes it easier in tight spots, while the Volvo's heavier steering and long bonnet take more effort. Visibility in both is excellent, though the thin pillars and big glass areas make reversing less of a gamble than in modern cars. As motorway companions, they are equally accomplished. Wind noise is low in the Ford, slightly higher in the Volvo. Those upright windows don't help, but both settle into a long-legged cruise beautifully. The Ford's softer suspension is better on smooth tarmac, the Volvo's composure shines when the surface turns rough. Verdict, choosing between two gentle giants. So, after a week of wafting around in these great slabs of 80s motoring metal, where do we stand? The Ford Granada 2.0 L is a marvelously comfortable and characterful machine. It offers space, ease, and a bit of understated glamour. It's the more charming car to drive day to day, easier to maintain, and distinctly British in its blend of comfort and optimism. It's also the one that'll make you grin when you glance back at it in the car park, partly from affection, partly from relief that it's still there. The Volvo 240 GL, by contrast, is the better car in the objective sense. It's safer, tougher, and more refined on long journeys. It's a bit dull to look at, a bit heavy to drive, but it's engineered to outlive you, and it will. There's a quiet satisfaction in knowing you're driving something built not just to perform, but to endure. In short, category winner. Performance Volvo, by a whisker. Comfort Ford. Handling Volvo. Running costs Ford. Safety Volvo. Style forward/character Ford. Longevity Volvo. Overall value, 1984, Ford Granada 2.0 L. Overall value, 40 years later, Volvo 242.0 GL. The Granada wins the heart, the Volvo wins the head. If you want something warm, friendly, and proudly British, buy the Ford. If you want something indestructible, rational, and faintly smug, buy the Volvo. Either way, you'll have a fine, honest, and wonderfully large car that reminds us of a time when dashboards were square, seat fabrics were furry, and 2 liters was all the engine a sensible person could ever need. Epilogue, the legacy of two titans. Today, spotting either of these cars in the wild feels like a visit from an old friend. The Ford, if you can find one that hasn't dissolved into its component atoms, will still charm you with its easy gait and comfy seats. The Volvo, meanwhile, will almost certainly still be running, probably hauling furniture for a student or serving as a retro-cool daily for someone with a beard and a craft beer habit. Both represent a vanished era, when car design was honest, mechanics were simple, and the badge on the grille said something about your place in the world. They are big, brash, and utterly lovable reminders of a Britain that believed in the open road, the company car park, and the power of 2 liters to move both people and pride. So here's to the Granada and the 240, proof that in the 1980s, executive motoring meant a firm handshake, a velvet seat, and a petrol bill you tried not to look at.